she's a socialist, she wants 7% tax rates. Those are both accurate, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Communism has won, all right?
We have to destroy capitalism completely.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to The Rundown with Nzinga. I'm your host, Nzinga. This week, we are discussing communism in America. Is communism closer to being our reality than we think? Are we really on a highway to a hellish communist America? Are we on the midnight train to breadlines and depression? Let's talk about it. As you already know, young people are clinging to communism and socialism like white on rice. Americans between the ages of 18 and 34 are in favor of socialism over capitalism. 54% of Democrats under the age of 30 backed Bernie during the primaries, and 65% of Democrats under 30 voted for Bernie in the Nevada caucus.
That's a good thing.
No, it's not. Those stats are important because my generation is the future of this country. I am so sorry. This week I had the wonderful opportunity to speak with two people who were born in foreign nations, Leping Beck from China and Jonathan Uzgadegui from Venezuela. When speaking with them, they gave warnings to America that I sincerely hope we take seriously. For instance, Leping Beck explained that the unrest we're seeing in this country today has been seen in other countries right before they became a socialist nation.
What this country is facing is identical to a lot of countries that went socialism.
Many of the 18 to 34-year-olds that I mentioned earlier are probably the same ones that are rioting right now in the streets. Beyond the violence, the destruction of property, and the murder that is going on in the streets, we also have to think about the ideology of the rioters. And this is where we get into the nitty-gritty a little bit. Jonathan called out Black Lives Matter, who is the organization at the center of the unrest right now.
What I see right now in the United States is an organization called Black Lives Matter. It's an organization that is pretty much a Marxist organization. These are come out in public and say they are for Marxist ideology.
We actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists.
They come out in public. You can Google and search in public. There are a lot of information up there where they're saying they're Marxist trained by Marxist ideology. There are pictures of these people in Venezuela with Maduro.
Now, you all know me well enough to know that I love making fun of liberals. But hearing the comparison that Leping gave, and then learning from Jonathan about Black Lives Matter literally kicking back with Marxist dictators is a little bit scary. And what brought chills up my spine even more is to learn that we are nearly a mirror image of Venezuela just before it collapsed.
And just like that, you see baseball, football, basketball, the elite, so-called elite of Hollywood endorsing these corporations. And I got a news for Americans. Chavez got put in power by the wealthy, by the business, and everybody was pushing Marxist ideologies.
Sound familiar? Our ruling class is made up of more than just DC. Hollywood, the ugly wart on our country, also makes up the ruling class. And most of them align themselves with Black Lives Matter, Bernie Sanders, and anything and everything else that is aligned with the socialist agenda. But let's bring this closer to home. Leping, a businesswoman from North Carolina, said something about Roy Cooper that I found absolutely fascinating.
In the name of the greater good, that's usually what communists are using, because I'm from a communist country. I am very familiar with that rhetoric.
Do we know for sure if Roy Cooper is a socialist or a communist? No. At least he hasn't said as much out loud. But honestly, it doesn't really matter if he pledges his allegiance to Bernie, Mao, Lenin, Marx, because it is very clear as day that he is in favor of government overreach over liberty. And that's no bueno for sure. We also know that he allowed pro-life protesters, because they weren't socially distancing, to be arrested, but he literally went out and marched with Black Lives Matter, who we already know is a Marxist organization. Kind of sketchy. And then we've got Cal Cunningham, candidate for U.S. Senate. Now, Cal has literally called himself a proud progressive, as has Democrat Socialist AOC.
People are dying.
As has Democrat Socialist Bernie Sanders. Hey. As has Nancy Pelosi. As has Maxine Waters.
Impeach 45!
And those two words, proud progressive, he aligned himself with every crazy Democrat in D.C. And that includes every other member in the squad, and we already know them heifers crazy. Here is a warning straight from the heart of Lepping Beck.
And you look at any country who ever went socialism, did they ever succeed?
The first meeting?
Nobody. It's impossible. And there's a saying you vote your way into socialism, you have to shoot your way out of socialism. Let me tell you, that's not true, because it is impossible to shoot your way out of socialism. Nobody ever did. Look at how Russia, they had to collapse. The entire society had to collapse.
How many more foreign-born people have to come to this nation and warn us, like Lepping and like Jonathan, before we wake up and really see what's going on? When are we as conservatives, we as Republicans, going to start thinking 2 and 3 generations ahead? Socialist, Marxist progressives do it and have been doing it for generations. This November, we have to vote for Tom Tillis. We have too much to lose. We have to vote for Dan Forrest. There's way too much at stake. And we have to vote for Donald Trump, because sometimes it takes a real man to slap some sense into a nation. Figuratively speaking, of course. Our job is to conserve our freedoms and liberties, not to allow grown, temper tantrum throwing rioters to take it away. Our job is to conserve this city set on a hill, not allow socialist, Marxist, communist politicians to come and make it a city set in hell. And right now, we can do all of this at the ballot box. Well, that's the rundown, ladies and gentlemen. Let's turn North Carolina red and save ourselves from enslaving ideologies. I'll see you next week.
America will never be a socialist country.